So, welcome to a channel update video. This is the one that I've been talking about at the tail end of many battle replays for quite a while now. The initial plan was to do it as a live stream, but then I considered that really the only content that's going to be involved there is the actual update and me talking. So, without any sort of other thing that I could do within the live stream, it didn't really make much sense to actually do one. If it was a little bit closer to the Nalgrim's release for Silmarillion, I could have folded that in and we could have had a closer look at them, but I feel like they've been out for long enough at this point that I've kind of missed the boat on that one. So yeah, we're just going to be doing it in classic video format, because I want this to be as concise as possible, really, because there are a few things to talk about. All of them are going to directly impact the channel, both in good and bad ways, and both in the short and longer term. So it is all going to be quite relevant if you're interested to know where the channel is going to be going. And we're going to do this in sort of a good news, good news sandwich. And we'll start off with the most obvious good news, really, which is I do have a date for when I'm going to be moving on from my current employment, which is the main thing, which is impeding my ability to really run the channel in the way that I would like. Now, obviously, there's certainly more for my reasons for moving on from my current employment than just the fact that it's getting in the way of me doing YouTube. Like that would be completely ridiculous, obviously. But that is one other little side effect which will be remedied by the fact that I am now moving. And that date, my final date anyway, in the office, I believe is going to be December the 2nd. It could be earlier than that, actually, by a few weeks, but December the 2nd is the absolute latest. It is also the most likely point as well, because I am going to be moving on to do, it's not directly a PhD, but it will go into a PhD, basically. You could look at it, I suppose, as a 4-year PhD, and that's what I'm going to be doing from January 2023, and I'm going to be leaving, obviously, a month earlier so that I can get my affairs in order and actually get things done. And I will actually be moving back to my hometown for the first year of it as well. How this is going to work as well is actually the first year is going to be a little bit more similar to what I would have been doing back in 2019, 2020 as well. So my actual free time, certainly for the first year, is going to actually be substantial enough to the point where I should be able to expand the channel out to the point that it was before. I should be able to do 3 videos a week. Now, we'll get on to a few things later on as to why this may or may not be the case, but there's no reason capacity-wise that I shouldn't be able to do that. I should also be able to start branching out into a couple of other things here and there as well. I've had people ask me about this in the past, whether it be for Botet, which is the Warhammer mod from Medieval 2, other Total War games, or other stuff like Bannerlord as well, with its mods that have now been steadily releasing since its release, its main release. And yeah, so that's going to be something which we can also look forward to, which it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've been wanting to put the channel back to the position it was in before I moved to Wales, but it just hasn't been possible. I mean, I've got genuinely one of the worst jobs when it comes to trying to run the channel in tandem with it, purely because of the fact that being away for big blocks of time means that you have to record in giant blocks and basically have yourself ahead of schedule, and there's no way that I could do that with 3 videos a week for a number of reasons, but one is the fact that I simply would not want to. We'll be getting on to a little bit more about my scheduling in just a moment in the short term before next year rolls around, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be possible, and it's really frustrating, but it has been what it's been. Like, my channel's been on what I call the sort of low-key survival mode for a little while now, and it's been doing fine. Like, it's been treading water more or less, but I do feel as though that if I were to try and do something a little bit more with my channel, I would need more free time than I currently have. But that will be happening, and that will be happening next year, and it's been a real weight off my mind, because this year in those terms has been a real roller coaster for me. It's been manic highs and lows, as I thought things were happening, and then it turns out they weren't because of certain things, and then I thought maybe this would be an option, but then it turns out it wasn't. But finally we've got everything sorted. It wasn't how I thought things were initially going to go. I thought I was going to be initially going to Leeds for a standard 3 years, but instead I'm going to be going back home for a year and then probably moving on to the 3-year portion to Southampton would be the most likely spot, I think, at the National Oceanography Centre. But Irregardless, we won't be talking too much more about that in the ins and outs, because really, as it pertains to the channel, it will be, at the very least, in 2023 a good thing. When it moves on to the meat of the situation in the 3-year section in Southampton or elsewhere, that's when things may have to be scaled back again to the point where we are at the moment, because a PhD is very intensive. Now, it doesn't have the same rolling sort of 3-week blocks where I'm away that I do at the moment, so I should have a little bit more freedom in those terms, but in terms of the amount of work I'm actually doing, it'll be certainly comparable, if not more so. So that is worth bearing in mind as well, but that isn't until 2024, and that is a long way off. I mean, a lot of things can happen between then and now, so it's not really worth worrying about too much. The point is, at some point in the medium future, I suppose you could call it, as 2023 rolls around, my channel will be getting back to a position similar to that it was in before I got my current job. That's the good news, the main good news as well, and that really is something which dominates this update, really, because that's going to be the key thing. As for what would be considered the bad news, I suppose that would be the immediate future, because not always when I've been at my current post has it been genuinely like 3 weeks away time after time. That is very likely to be the case from now until October, basically. Most of August I will be away, and then the second half of September and the beginning of October I will also likely be away for 3 weeks, which makes recording the content for the channel in the amounts that is necessary, given the fact that I completely chewed through my backlog in the most recent 3-week trip away, it makes it really unfun. And that's the problem that I'm really running into at the moment. Like, I'm starting to view this, especially in tandem with my current employment, I'm starting to view this as work, which is not a good thing, especially considering the fact that it takes up an awful lot of my free time as it stands, which is at a premium, to produce the content at the rate necessary to do these 2 videos a week. That's a real problem. I don't want to start resenting the fact that I have to do these videos, and so that means here and there across the next couple of months, 3 months or so, there may be the odd missing video, simply because there will be times where I simply don't want to dedicate my entire weekend to recording content. Like, I just don't want to do that. Like, my free time, I want to be able to do something for me in my free time, and that's become very apparent in recent times. Like, I want to relax, I want to switch off, and with the pace that I'm having to make content at the moment, I'm finding it difficult to switch off. So that's going to be the thing. So in the very short term, there may be a little downtick in terms of the amount of content, or at least in terms of the length of content. Like, it may be that in a given week, there'll be a battle replay, and then there'll be another sort of smaller video, which will be focusing a little bit more on something stats focused, which I've got a few ideas on that, but we'll see. I mean, if I bring out one of those and it isn't received very well, then I simply won't bother with that. But it's the sort of thing which people should like, given it's how my channel first started. But either way, that's the sort of thing which, when it comes out, you'll know, and if it's received well, it's the sort of thing which can be folded in, and it'll give me a little bit more breathing room in the coming weeks and months before we can then start to expand out on the channel again. I hope I can expand out on the channel anyway. I mean, one thing that could certainly make a return, I suppose, is the regular live streams doing Divide and Conquer campaigns. I mean, that was something which I didn't really enjoy giving up, to be honest with you, because we were on a bit of a roll with those, starting with Lothlorien and then the Black Numenorians, then Erebor, and I kind of just had to stop because I knew there wouldn't be enough time. Like, it just wasn't feasible anymore. But that will change next year, I think. So that would be the sort of thing which I can add basically into the current schedule, and we could see where that leads us. Yeah, that would be the most obvious thing, I think. But yeah, live streams could be making a return next year. Yeah, but like I said, long term, good for the amount of content on the channel. Short term, maybe not as good. I mean, like I said, if the extra ideas that I have are actually received well in terms of these smaller videos, then the actual amount of videos probably won't decrease. But that's the thing. Also, there is the fact that most of the replays I'm getting at the moment, there are some exceptions to this, but most of the replays I'm getting a lot of repeated maps at this point, and it's starting to be a little bit more difficult for me to maintain my enthusiasm when it's a map that I've seen 5, 6 plus times before. which is part of the reason why Reforged desperately needs a content update, to be honest. Like, I mean, I'm being selfish there from my perspective, because it's obviously necessary for me, but also for the game itself, it really does need an injection of new stuff. This can happen on an individual basis from time to time, like when Eclipse, for example, brings out one of his scenarios and runs it, but as far as more sweeping changes go, I do think that that is somewhat necessary. There is actually another reason, before I move on, as to why I may not necessarily want to be trying to record in bulk at this very moment. Like I mentioned, there is a bit of a heat wave, and my old PC doesn't really enjoy being in the old in the heat. So I was actually trying to record a large-scale battle replay, and it crashed halfway through, which was very very disheartening. But yeah, it is what it is. So I won't be able to bulk record at the moment with that being the case. I do have my new PC, but I'm playing Elden Ring on that, and like I mentioned already, I want to take some time for me, and one of the things I'm taking time for me to do is play Elden Ring. I don't want to be using all that my PC's processing power just to render videos. So yeah, it is what it is. But I can render and play in tandem with two PCs, but not if my older one is looking to burst into flames at its nearest opportunity. So, what about the other good news? Well, the other good news, I've already alluded to it slightly. My new PC is here. I haven't transferred really any of my recording stuff across to it yet. I haven't got my rendering software on there. I haven't set off OBS, just in case I want to stream on it yet. Because like I said, I'm playing through Elden Ring at the moment, and that will... I'm not really going to be streaming that, because I've already started, and it's not really the sort of thing which my channel is particularly known for. Maybe I would have given it a go if I was able to do it when Elden Ring was completely new, but I've, again, missed the boat on that, thanks to work again. But yeah, new PC is here. Slowly but shortly we'll be transferring stuff across, and it will become, again, a bit of a recording hub as well as everything else I've got going on. And that can only be a good thing, because my old PC was really starting to chug. Moria obviously was broken on it. I feel as though other maps are going to start to follow as well. It is really starting to be on its last legs, but it's given me a lot of good service over the past 7 or 8 years. I think I've had the PC at this point. I've replaced a few small components on it, but other than that, it's still very much the same thing that I had initially. So yeah, that's good. My new PC will last me for quite a while, certainly long enough to encapsulate the entirety of potentially the PhD that I've got coming up. And so yeah, that's really all I had to say on that. You can see why I didn't really want to do a live stream on this, because there's not really much else I can say at this point. It is what it is. Longer term, things are looking up. Shorter term, we're going to be trying to do some rejigging so that I'm feeling a little bit less swamped in my free time to actually, or hounded I suppose is the right way to describe it, to do content in what little remains of my free time. But with a new PC, with the upcoming uptick in my mood, which will come next year regardless, things are looking up in the longer term, so just bear with me. You know, over the course of the next few weeks I will endeavour to make sure that those smaller videos that are a little bit more stats focused are good enough to replace the second battle replay per week. And like I said, this is only likely to be really until October time, and then we're right on the doorstep of moving into 2023 and the sort of re-emergence of the channel as it used to be. Yeah, so that's it really. I'm starting to ramble a little bit, but the key piece of information from this video is December the 2nd. That will be when I'm moving on, and that will be when the channel can breathe again, so to speak. So yeah, I hope you found this somewhat informative. I hope you will join me as well for whatever is next.